All right, so we're going to talk about strings today. Strings are, you can think about as a string of characters. So in our kind of everyday language, we're just talking about words. So if I have a word that is computer, and I can print the word that we have it show up on the console. So with the way the computer is going to store this is it's going to look at each character as a unique character that have been strung together. So the capital C has its own binary signature as well as lowercase o, and it just puts them together and gets the word computer. Because it sees them as separate characters, we have different ways to talk about those characters, and that is what we call our indices. So we index each character. One thing to know for this in computer science, we often will have our first character be our 0 index. So that is my 0 index, and I have the ability to go all the way up. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have a 7th index. I have 8 characters. So one thing to look at with this is I can print the length of my string with len word, and I'll see that I get 8. There's 8 things there that I have. Okay. And so when we look at this, we have different ways that we can pull out a different substring or a slice of a word or a string in Python. So the way that we do that is to use these square brackets. So if I have word, I have these brackets, I put a colon in the middle, and then I can put indices here. So if I put 0 and I put 1, what's going to show up is C. Right? If I put 0 and I put 2, I get CO. So what's happening is when I have these indices, this is an inclusive piece, which means I'll include that. This is exclusive. And so what that means is I will get 0, 2, and 1. 0 and 1. Right? So 0 and 1 are those indices, which gives me CO. Right? And there's lots of different ways that you can slice these. What you want to do is, if you want to know all the different ways that you can do this, what you're going to do is you're going to look in the documentation. So in Code Sculptor, it's built in right here in the docs piece. You'll click on it, and then you go to types and operations and strings, and you'll see there's all sorts of different methods, and then there's slicing. This has the different ways that we can slice it. You can see what happens when you put negatives in, when you don't specify something after the colon, but I'll leave that up to you guys to kind of just go through on your own and see what those do. So that's one thing with strings. We can get a portion of a string called a substring by slicing it. And you'll see different ways to do that. All right, another thing we can do with strings is we can add them together. So I can print word plus another. That's called concatenation, and it will string both of those words together. You can see I have a space here between science. If I don't put that space there, it's going to put it all together. And if I wanted to, I could add a space in between to get the same functionality. So that's string concatenation, which just means adding them together. All right. One thing to note is we have something called the empty string, which is just quote, quote. And if we print the length of our empty string, then we should get 0. So if there's nothing in a string, I'll get a length of 0. Anything that's non-empty will have a length of 1. All right, there's different things that we can do in terms of methods. So if we go back to our document, let me get a different word. So my word equals computer. And what I have are some methods or functions that I can use on strings. The ones that are going to be probably the most useful are find. Right? So if we look at string.find, we're looking for a substring, and we can tell it where to start and where to end. So if I'm curious as to this, if I'm looking for print word dot substring, or sorry, it's find MP, my quotes, what it's going to do is it's going to give me 2. What that means is 0, 1, 2, this is where that substring starts. Okay? So to see that, if I put in something different, if I put in T-E-R, I can see that that starts at 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where that piece would go. If I put in something that's not in there, like an X, I'm going to get back a -1. And that's signifying to me that it wasn't found in there. So instead of kicking an error, it's going to show me that, that it's not in there. So how could I use that? Let's say I wanted to actually print TER. I wanted to get that out. Now I could do that. I could hard code in and I could slice it like this. I could say print word dot, and I'd slice from, it was 5 to the end. And if I leave that just blank, it'll go to the end. And then I get TER. That's one way to do it, except I've hard coded in that value. And that's not really what I want to do. So what I could do is the better way to do it would say word dot find ER, and then that goes to the end. That should give me the same thing. Okay? So even better would be to, if I take this out, I could say sub equals TER, and then I could change this to be TER. I'm sorry, sub, that's my variable. And now I will find that substring. The advantage of this is, let's say I'm looking for a different substring. I just change it here, and I'm still going to get the rest of that piece. Now this didn't do PUT, it did all the way to the end. So if I really wanted to make this, it's going to look a little complicated, but it's going to allow me to get one piece of the word. If I wanted to just get put to show up from the computer, what I need to do is I need to figure out a couple of things. My general algorithm for this is I need to figure out where it starts. So this is going to be the start. This piece needs to go to the start plus the length of the substring that I'm interested in. That will give me to get that slice and pull that out. All right, so if I do that, if I look at this, I'm going to, we'll do PUT. Right, PUT is our start. I'm going to say start equals word.find substring. Okay. And then just to make sure that's working correctly, I'm going to print start. And I get the 3, that's good, that's where that's going to start. Now I'm going to now put that into here. So I'm going to start. This needs to go to the start plus the length of the substring. And let's see what happens when we do that. See if we have it right. I'm going to run it. I get PUT. All right. So this is what we're going for. This looks complicated, but it's going to be a generalized word. So if I changed it, so if I was looking for OMP up here, OMP, that should be the only thing that I should have to change, and then everything still works. And for a short piece like this where it's just computer, that's going to, again, it's easy for a person to be able to look at that and find it. It's going to be more useful when you have something that looks like this. So this is our Declaration of Independence, okay, that is long. And if I asked you to look through and find different pieces of text, that's going to be hard to do because you have to scan the whole thing and you're prone to make errors. So what we can do is we can do the same idea. We can write a function called find text. We give it a keyword, and then we basically use the find commands to find where that word starts, and then we figure out where the period goes, and then we do some string slicing to give us that part of it. So if I was to look for the text that contained levy, and I run it, that's going to show up. Over here, you can see that's where it starts. That's where the next period is. If I look for the word nor, I'm going to be able to do that here, and then it's going to end there. All right, so there's lots you can do with strings. You're going to work through the lab and then go from there. All right, don't forget to look at the documentation to help you out.